What's up, guys? Higgins in Japan here with another video for ya, and this one is a little bit slightly different, but also not all that entirely different. Recently made a Q&A video about teaching in Japan, and after I made the video, Kevin from Just Japan Podcast sent me an email, or sent me a DM on Twitter and said, "Hey, I got a couple questions for you." And so I decided to make a special video just to talk about the question that he asked, because it's a good topic, and if you're coming to Japan to be a teacher, hopefully it will be a little bit of motivation for you in the classroom. So the question that he asked was if I had ever been in a situation like in a classroom or after teaching a class where I just wanted to throw in the towel, just hang it up, say, you know what, maybe teaching's not for me. And to be fair, I have not, thankfully, had a class that bad, but I have had a couple experiences in the classroom where things just didn't go as smoothly as I wanted, and maybe have to kind of stop and reconsider and maybe think some things over. One of the stories that comes to mind is, if you're gonna go fast. Okay, you're not gonna go. I gave you the opportunity. We all saw it. If you're not gonna take the opportunity, then you will wait in line. So the first thing that it brought to mind was a story about how I had just moved to town. I just moved to Japan. Hadn't really taught a whole lot in Japan, and I walk into this would have been a 6th grade elementary school classroom. Now, something to think about, or something to consider, is when you're teaching elementary school, usually most of the time that lesson is all prepared by you. It's all your thing, right? Now, your case may vary. You could be in a place where they do team teaching or something along those lines. But what happened was I walk into the class, and I talked to the homeroom teacher beforehand. He tells me, hey, basically says, hey, if you need any help, I used to be a junior high English teacher. And so, I went into that class thinking, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to be in this classroom. We're going to be like Batman and Robin, or whatever famous duo you want to throw in there. Like, this is going to be great. And so he sat at the front of the classroom and just graded papers while I fumbled through a lesson. And I had students that just were not paying attention. It was dead silent. At one point, I just stopped talking and just stood there and looked at everybody like, what is going on? Like, am I an alien? Do you guys not understand anything? Just nothing was getting through to these students, to the point where I was like, I'm just going to walk out of the classroom. There's nothing stopping me from just walking out of this classroom. Nobody's answering my questions. Nobody's doing maybe a handout that I prepared. I forget exactly what the lesson was, but it was a disaster. And you're probably more than likely going to have a few of those classes. And one of the reasons why that is I'm racking my brain, did the things that I learned in college about teaching not actually mean anything? That kind of thing. But the big thing is, in elementary school, and don't tell elementary school kids this, because this could ruin the whole thing. In elementary school, English is not a graded subject, right? So there's no tests, there's no quizzes, there's no nothings to prove that you know what you've been learning, right? There's nothing stopping a kid from saying, you know what, I don't really care about English. And that, some students know. Some students, are still kind of young enough that they don't really care, they'll still pay attention. But that plays into a lot of the motivation of the students that you're going to be teaching, right? And there's so many different things that factor into your students' motivation, right? One of them could be the fact that they know that this is not a graded subject, so they don't care, so they're not going to pay attention. The other thing could just be they don't feel like English is important to them, right? And then there's no penalty for them thinking that, right? So if they don't like science, well, they're still going to study just so they can get a passing grade, but with English, there's not that motivation there, right? So what I've found is you have to find what motivates your students, right? And you have to find the students that are motivated to learn English and teach to them. Not saying don't teach the kids that aren't motivated to learn English, but focusing on students that want to learn English, focusing on them in the classroom, at least I've found, one, makes your lessons go a lot smoother. Two, those kids that want to learn English aren't penalized, right? Because if you're just like, you know what, I'm done with this class, I'm walking out, you've penalized the whole class for, disruptive students or students that don't want to learn, and that goes into like, what do you do? How do you deal with disruptive students? You just ignore them. All they want is attention, and all they're doing is taking time away from your lesson. Also, as an ALT, you're more than likely not in any, well, I will say not more than likely, you are in no way, shape, or form allowed to discipline or anything students. So there's really no reason why you should be taking time out of your lesson to yell at students. It's just pointless. And like I said, they're doing it for attention, and so did I miss my turn? Whatever. They're doing it for attention, and so there's no reason for you to, continue to, waste time during a lesson to cater to the students that are just there to disrupt, right? Like, don't pay any attention to those students, and teach to the students that want to learn. Eventually, some of those other students will come on board. A lot of those students will see, hey, they're having fun with this, and the other thing is, I was a new teacher, right? So I didn't know the things that motivated my students at the time. I didn't know the things that interested them. I didn't know the ways to teach a lesson, not just read it off of a piece of paper and say, here's the lesson plan, but to teach an actual lesson based on the interests of my students, right? And to gauge what they were interested in and then tweak the lesson to make it interesting to them. And so that's what that became throughout the year, right? They got to know me, they got to know my teaching style, they got to know who I was, they got to know the lessons, they got to see their other friends having fun, and so they, throughout the whole year then, they eventually came around, and that became one of my favorite classes to go to, because I knew that we would have fun, but the students were having fun and the students were learning as well. But that took time, and now I can walk into a classroom, and I've been doing this for such a long time now that those things don't bother me. Those things don't worry me about the things that go on in a lesson. I think the things that bother me now are like, did I write the correct stuff on this worksheet? Is this going to make sense to them? I think that's where I'm at now, is like, not so much motivation, because I know that I can motivate the students, and as an ALT, like, that's part of your job, is to motivate them to learn English and to learn. So yeah, like, if you come to Japan and you're going to be a teacher, I would say the biggest things are to find what motivates your students, find what interests your students, use that kind of stuff in the classroom, use all of that to your advantage, and it will take a while for your students to warm up to you if you're a new teacher, and that's just because they don't know who you are, and they're not going to get your dumb jokes, and they're not going to get your handouts with meme pictures on them, which I may or may not do, but like, you're there to kind of motivate them to learn English. And in the junior high setting, you're usually there with another teacher, and those teachers seem to be slightly more motivated. Maybe, I don't know. It kind of depends on who you get as a teacher. But, those teachers, they have a book that they have to get through, and they have tests that they have to give those students. And so that's a whole nother dynamic of what you're doing as an English teacher. So, so find out what your students are interested in. Find out what is going to be the best motivation for them. And then also know that you're going to have students that don't care about English. And you know what? Honestly, that's okay. Because not every student wants to be able to use English in their future or as a profession. And honestly, that's okay. I've had students that want to be car mechanics, and they don't see the value of speaking English. I've had students that want to be interpreters and see the need to be able to speak English, and the motivation there between those two students is completely different. So just find out what those students are interested in, and then hopefully you won't have a moment where you just want to hang it all up, and hopefully you'll be able to motivate your students in that way. So hopefully that answered your question in a really long form. I doubt that I will edit most of this stuff out. So I guess this is like a bonus Friday video thing. But thanks for watching. If you have any more questions or comments, head over to facebook.com/Higgins in Japan. Or you can leave me a comment here if you have other questions about teaching in Japan or life in Japan in general. I will try to do my best to answer them in the best way that I see possible. I am off to get some coffee, and I don't know if there's an accident up here or what, but traffic is crazy. So I'm gonna keep driving. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you. Hopefully you can see me. It's getting kind of dark. I'll see you in another video. Have a good one, guys. Peace.